The weight of the woods. The old cabin was deep enough in the woods that the nearest town felt like another planet. That was the point. Arthur needed space, needed silence, needed the oppressive green blanket of the forest to smother the city noise and the louder clamor in his own head. He'd inherited the place from a distant relative he barely remembered, a reclusive aunt who'd apparently preferred the company of trees and whatever else stirred in the dark. He'd arrived 2 days ago. The first day was idyllic in a rustic, slightly unsettling way, chopping wood, reading by the crackling fire, the smell of pine and damp earth heavy in the air. Last night, though, had been off. Not just the usual spooky creaks of an old house settling. More like sounds that shouldn't be there. A branch snapping too sharply outside the window, a low rustling that seemed to follow him as he moved from the kitchen to the bedroom, a sudden, profound silence that fell like a physical weight. Tonight, the feeling was back, stronger. He sat by the fire, a book open but unread on his lap. Every shadow seemed deeper, every gust of wind sounded like a sigh right outside the brittle glass. He tried to shake it off. Animals. Wind. His own overstimulated city imagination playing tricks. Then came the scraping sound. It wasn't on the roof, or the walls. It was low down, near the foundation, like something heavy being dragged slowly through the dirt, circling the cabin. Scrapey, drag, scrapey, drag. His blood ran cold. He stood up slowly, trying to peer through the small, grimy windows. The woods outside were a solid, impenetrable black wall. The scraping continued, methodical, deliberate. It paused briefly near the front door, then resumed, moving towards the back. Arthur held his breath, listening. It wasn't a small animal. This had weight behind it. Suddenly, the scraping stopped. Absolute silence descended again. But this time, it felt less like the absence of sound and more like a held breath. The air grew colder, even by the fire. A faint, unpleasant smell drifted in, something musky and damp, like decaying leaves mixed with raw earth. A soft thump hit the back wall. Then another. Not loud, but heavy, impactful. Thump, thump, thump. It sounded like something testing the structure, learning its boundaries. Panic began to bubble. This wasn't an animal. This wasn't the wind. This was deliberate. This was aware. He had to get out. His car was parked about 50 yards away, just off the barely there track that led back to the main road. Getting to it meant going outside. He grabbed his keys from the table, his hands shaking so hard they jingled, a sound that felt deafening in the silence. He edged towards the front door, his eyes darting from window to window. The woods pressed in, silent witnesses. The faint smell was stronger here. He fumbled with the deadbolt, the metal cold under his clammy fingers. The scraping sound returned, faster this time, right by the door. It was waiting. He didn't think. He yanked the door open and burst out, slamming it shut behind him. The night air hit him like a physical shock, cold, thick with the smell. He didn't look back at the cabin. He didn't look into the woods. He just ran. His feet pounded on the soft earth of the path, roots and stones tripping him. The pale beam of his small keychain flashlight bounced wildly, showing him only fleeting glimpses of hostile-looking trees and tangled undergrowth. Behind him, he heard it. Not footsteps, exactly. More like the sound of the absence of footsteps. A rapid, rustling glide through the dead leaves and pine needles. Faster than he could run. It was gaining. He risked a glance over his shoulder. Nothing. Just the dark, endless woods. But the sound was closer. And now, a new sound joined it, a low, guttural murmur, like pebbles rattling in a deep, damp throat. It wasn't language, but it felt like communication. A promise. A threat. Keep running. It's right behind you. His lungs burned, his legs ached, but the fear was a sharp, cold needle pushing him forward. He burst out of the trees and onto the rough gravel track where his car sat, a dark, reassuring shape in the gloom. He scrambled for the driver's door, fumbling with the lock. The rustling and murmuring were right there, at the edge of the woods, just yards away. He could feel its presence, a chilling pressure in the air, the raw earth smell suddenly overwhelming. Key in the ignition. His hand trembled violently. Turn. The engine sputtered, coughed, refused to catch. Come on. Come on, he gasped, sweat stinging his eyes. A thick, heavy thud hit the back of the car. The vehicle shook. Then another. And another. Faster now. Like something massive was hitting it with repetitive, brutal force. Thump. 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 The rear window spider-webbed. He didn't look in the rearview mirror. He couldn't. All his focus was on the key, the ignition. Thump. A crack appeared in the windshield. The engine finally roared to life. He slammed the gearshift into reverse, tires spinning on the gravel as he backed up wildly, then swung it into drive and floored the accelerator. The car surged forward, lights cutting twin beams of weak yellow through the darkness. He swerved onto the main road, a narrow, winding ribbon of asphalt. He didn't slow down. He didn't dare look in the rearview mirror. But he could still hear it. It wasn't pursuing him on the road. It was moving through the woods, parallel to him. The rustling glide was fainter now, but still audible over the engine noise. And the murmuring, it seemed to weave through the trees, sometimes closer, sometimes further, like it was playing a game, or just observing, keeping pace effortlessly. He drove faster, the tires screaming on the curves. The car's internal lights flickered. The dashboard radio suddenly staticed to life, a shriek of white noise that made him jump, then died. He gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, eyes fixed on the road ahead. The woods on either side felt alive, watching. Shadows seemed to stretch and writhe just outside the edge of his headlights. He knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that it hadn't stopped. It was still there. Keeping pace. He drove for what felt like hours, though it was probably only 20 minutes, before he saw the first distant glow of town lights on the horizon. As the lights grew nearer, the oppressive feeling began to recede. The sounds from the woods faded. The cold air in the car warmed slightly. The foul smell dissipated. He pulled into the first gas station he saw, the fluorescent lights harsh and comforting. He killed the engine, the sudden silence deafening after the roar and the ghostly sounds of the chase. He slumped against the steering wheel, trembling violently. He forced himself to look in the rearview mirror. Nothing but the dark, empty road stretching back the way he came. He got out and walked around the car. The back was dented, the rear window shattered. There was a large, damp smudge on the trunk, the color of dark earth. He didn't go back to the cabin. Ever. He tried to tell people. They talked about bears, or coyotes, or maybe a hallucination brought on by stress. He knew they were wrong. Because sometimes, late at night, when the city is quiet, he feels the weight of the woods on him. He hears a faint, low murmur on the wind. And sometimes, just sometimes, outside his window, no matter where he is, he thinks he hears a soft, deliberate scrape, drag. He knows it's still out there. Still waiting. Still following. And the distance between them feels shorter every time.